WrestleMania 28 is in the books in Miami from Sun Life Stadium. Bryan, Fritz here from BetweenTheRopes.com, joined by Arda, Ocal, Jimmy Korderas from the Score Network in Toronto. Let's get your thoughts on the matches. The big one, the once-in-a-lifetime match, Arda. We saw The Rock defeat John Cena to close out the show.
I want everyone's honest opinion watching this. Did you predict The Rock would win clean? Be honest. I don't think so. I don't think many people did, unless they haven't been watching professional wrestling for a very long time. I think multiple scenarios went through our heads. My prediction was Rock with interference, but I never would have imagined what we saw here tonight.
Yeah, it's funny. Yep.
No, I didn't. I'm kidding.
You did not predict
No, I did not predict it. That
you
one,
predicted
that one
John
caught me.
Cena would win.
Yeah, I know. That came right out of left field for me. I was really surprised.
Well, it's funny because I went, just like you said, I thought John Cena would win the match, but I also said I think it would be better if Rock won and they did a rematch next year. Maybe they did something where John Cena,
lifetime.
Yeah, where John Cena says, hey, you know what, I got to get this back. I don't feel like I'm a man. I mean, the whole thing was, I'm obsessed. I've got to win this match, and then he doesn't win the match. So if they don't do that match next year, where do you think they go? Because there's been some talk that maybe they could do a year-long build-up towards WrestleMania again and maybe announce something Monday Night at Raw.
If that were to happen, I think that it wouldn't be as exciting because the novelty is now gone. I actually am not looking forward to, if that's in the cards, another year-long build, just simply because, okay, it's happened and it's kind of, it would be a letdown almost. I think that perhaps the match does need to happen again, but I'm looking forward to seeing what John Cena does tomorrow on Raw, or on Raw, whether you're watching it tonight or tomorrow or whatever it's going to be. But I mean, it's going to be interesting because we've never seen him so dejected like that before. Like, this is a pivotal moment in his character. Where will he go now? Who is he going to feud with next? It's actually very compelling.
It is, and the facial expressions tell the story right at the end. But talking about a year-long feud, maybe we don't see a rematch between John Cena and The Rock next year. Maybe the year-long feud that they may be alluding to could involve someone rumored to be coming back and possibly the Undertaker streak.
Yeah, let's talk about that a little bit because there's been a lot of rumors here in Miami all weekend long. Brock Lesnar, is he in town? What could he do? Who could he face? Batista, he was in town to do some charity work, and a lot of people were wondering, that's quite the coincidence. He happens to be in Miami the weekend of WrestleMania. So what are your thoughts about maybe Brock Lesnar and or Batista returning to WWE?
I think it's great. I think that they'll generate a lot of interest like The Rock generated in terms of interest for this pay-per-view. I mean, you heard the crowd reaction for that match, but in terms of the Undertaker's streak, I mean, well, first of all, the match was amazing. Here's the thing. The difference between Rock Cena and Undertaker Triple H for me was the crowd reactions made Rock versus Cena, but Triple H versus Undertaker made crowd reactions. That's the thing. Like, I would watch Cena Rock once and be fulfilled. I would watch Taker Triple H at least 5 times to be fulfilled, to miss what nuances I missed. It was just this phenomenal match. In terms of the streak, like you were mentioning, if it's Brock Lesnar, great. If it's Batista, fine. If it's CM Punk, cool. If it's Chris Jericho, great. If it's John Cena, even better. Because I just want to see a fresh face go after the streak.
Yeah, and like you said, it's a year-long to build, so if it is a fresh new face, as opposed to somebody like a Batista or Brock Lesnar, they've got an entire year to get this person, to that level where you actually think that the streak may come to an end. But if it's Brock, at least the seed's been planted, and even with Batista, they have a history and a past, so either way, I'm happy with it.
Yeah, you talk about that match, Hell in a Cell. It's amazing, the streak. Undertaker 20-0 now at WrestleMania all time. And I think as he's gotten older, somehow he's gotten better. I mean, we saw WrestleMania 24. He beats Shawn Michaels. Some people maybe call that the greatest match in WrestleMania history. He does it again. He beats Shawn Michaels the following year. Then it's Triple H. Then he beats Triple H again. And with the match we saw tonight, we haven't seen him in a while. The guy's banged up. He's a little bit older, but every year he brings it, and that match once again stole the show.
The thing is that, and the first thing that came through my mind when the match was over was, why was this in a Hell in a Cell? Other than to promote and for people to be excited that it was in a steel cage structure, right? The cell wasn't used, but I think at the end of the day, what really made the match over the top, better than WrestleMania 27, was HBK. And his reactions like, oh my God, like what's going to happen? Like, this is impossible. Like, what am I seeing? Like, he really exemplified what the crowd was going through, and he added that if it was a 9, it would have been a 13 because of Shawn Michaels.
Yeah, and in my mind, going into WrestleMania ahead of time, Arda knows this. This was the match that I thought was going to steal the show because I know personally how these two men think, all three of them actually, and I know they were going to be dead set on stealing the show. No pun intended there.
Let's get some other thoughts about the show. We saw Chris Jericho lose to CM Punk, so Punk keeps his championship. And in the opener, Sheamus becomes the new World Heavyweight Champion. He beats Daniel Bryan, and I believe it was 18 seconds.
How about that?
That's what they're saying. You know what? People might be a little bit upset about that. I'm kind of a little upset about it too, but let's see where this goes because, you know, the whole Daniel Bryan, AJ situation right now, I think that's where we're going to head to now. He's going to start blaming her for the loss. You cost me my moment. It was a fluke win, and he can come off saying that. And as a heel, it works for him. The only thing I think is this 18-second win, the way Sheamus is now World Heavyweight Champion, didn't benefit him.
One thing I do want to say is that in the 2 or 3 matches after that match, people were still chanting for Daniel Bryan. I don't know if it translated on pay-per-view. If you happen to be watching on TV, people were chanting Daniel Bryan throughout the next 2 or 3 matches, which says something.
Absolutely, and I think that he's a guy that, hey, you saw what happened on the show tonight. He lost the title, he had the quick match, and there's going to be some people that are frustrated with that, but you know what? There is something behind it, and I don't think you're going to see Daniel Bryan get buried like a lot of people are worried about. Quickly, the Punk and Jericho match, I think they had a really hard time trying to get the crowd back into the show. It was after Hell in a Cell. By the end of it, they did it. You know, they had a very good 15-minute match. It's just so difficult, I think, after you have an epic match like what we saw and saying, okay, let's get the crowd back into this big show.
You know, one thing that I do want to say, Jimmy, is that in terms of creativity in the ring, the 2 major points for me were CM Punk and Chris Jericho had fantastic reversals. That just the way they flowed the match, the Walls of Jericho, the crowd popped big for the Walls of Jericho. Like, that's where the crowd got invested again. And also, you have to give props to Dolph Ziggler and Zack Ryder. Those 2 guys have a lot of chemistry that I think we should see more of, because what we saw from them tonight it was creative and different. And, you know, Dolph Ziggler has been saying, you know, he wants to steal the show. Maybe he didn't steal the show at WrestleMania, but he reminded us that he has a lot to give, and I think that we'd like to see more of that.
Yeah, and going back to Punk Jericho, I think they had 2 things working against them. Obviously, trying to follow that Hell in a Cell, and then going into this thing because people had such high expectations for this match. They wanted it so bad to be this generation Steamboat Savage that no matter what it was, whether it's a 5-star match, and I really enjoyed the match. I thought it was great, but because people's expectations, I think some people might think it wasn't as good as they thought it would be in their minds, even though the match still stood up.
I think overall everybody was happy. WrestleMania 28 in the books. It was a momentous occasion for WWE. You talk about the stadium, Sun Life Stadium here in Miami, Florida, a record crowd of over 78,000 people. They've all kind of left by now, but over 78,000 people here. And by the way, the biggest gate ever for WWE, $8.9 million gross for this company. That's saying something considering all the other big shows that they've had. WrestleMania 29 coming up next year. They're going to New York City. They'll be in the Meadowlands, so it'll be a joint venture between New York City and New Jersey. Thanks to Jimmy Korderas, Arda, Ocal joining me from the Score Network in Toronto. I'm Brian Fritz for BetweenTheRopes.com.